We officially started this panel live from Japan with KidShoryuken. What's going on, everybody who's joining us for the panel? It's about that time. We're live. It looks and sounds good too. Apparently, we sound crisp, is what I'm being told, which is good.
Fresh and clean.
Fresh and clean, exactly. So, welcome to the panel, everybody. Okay, I'm JakeJames Lugo. I'm your moderator here for the panel right now. You probably see me throughout the day, but I'm hanging out with KidShoryuken. We're going to talk live from Japan. We're talking about Japanese gaming stuff. Talk about a whole bunch of things, man, because you're in Japan right now. Like, you're here. You're there.
Right now, physically present, Japan, that's where I am.
You're here, you're there, and you're doing things.
I am doing so many things.
Shirt.
That's right. I took it seriously.
That's good. So tell me, how are you feeling out there right now? Because obviously, like, we were just talking, like, before we started, but for anybody that didn't see it or hear it before, I mean, now, obviously, the pandemic still going on everywhere, stuff like that. Like, how are you doing overall, like, with that stuff?
You know, there are worse places to be right now. Japan, I would say, you know, numbers fluctuate here and there, but we're always on the lower end of the spectrum. I said before that just at a normal time when there's not a pandemic going on, people here are already, you know, prone to wearing masks and being ultra hygienic just because they know in a place like Tokyo, like the most densely populated city on the planet, they're going to be in close proximity to other people all the time. You don't know what people got. So it's a normal thing here to wear masks and to be a little extra cautionary about picking up and spreading disease and stuff. So I think that's helped people a lot. But generally speaking, I mean, even when there was a state of emergency declared, there was like no legal requirements to do anything, really. They're very passive about that kind of thing, very respectful of their constitution.
That's good.
But it's kind of like a general way, you know, when someone says, hey, it's probably a good idea to do this, and you know, for XYZ reasons, people tend to take it seriously. So even if you don't, you know, force people to, most people were perfectly happy to, you know, quarantine themselves for a little while and, you know, wear the masks and do all that kind of stuff.
That's
but
good.
Still, people want to, you know, you want to get out, you want to go to the bar, you want to have a good time, you want to be social. So we're peppering that in there. Yeah, you know, we're not trying not to overdo it. But yeah, we got to have some fun.
It's better than here in the States. Let me put it that way, because over here in the States, like, we're the opposite, unfortunately. So we need a little bit of that in our lives right now. Which is
so
crazy.
I've heard.
So we're here to talk about Japanese gaming stuff, because again, you're in Japan. You do a lot of videos related to Japanese gaming culture. You do a lot of stuff with going to shops, going to a lot of the hot spots, a lot of good things that people want to know about, especially if they're thinking about traveling over there. I mean, for you've been doing it for a hot minute from what I saw. I mean, tell me a little bit about, like, again, going to a lot of those different places. Like, does anything surprise you about that stuff out there anymore at this point?
Surprise me? I don't think so. I mean, like you said, I've been here for about 10 years, been hitting the hard offs, all the game shops and things like that. The only time anything surprises me now, honestly, is when I come across like games from the US. Really? I'm like, now, like, you know, at first, like, I was like, oh, cool, like, this is a novelty. You know, look at Famicom games. Wow, that's weird. They're so tiny. Now, like, if I go into a shop and I see, like, you know, an NES cart or an SNES cart or something like that, I'm like, whoa, holy shit, wow. Man, I haven't seen one of these in like a decade. Whoa, this is crazy.
Like, what's this doing here?
Yeah, imports. Whoa.
That's crazy.
So yeah, that's the only thing. And then when you come across that ultra rare stuff, you know, going into shops, seeing like Neo Geo games for like $4,000 and
Jesus,
yeah, stuff like that. Or
what's the rarest thing you've ever seen, though? Like, what's the rarest, like, most ridiculous thing you've ever seen?
The rarest thing I've ever seen, probably like one crazy. Of those. They had there are these gold cartridges of a game called it's something Gundam Hot Scramble. And there are these gold cartridges. I think, like, I don't know, something like 50 of them were made, like 50 or 100 or something. So I've come across those. Those are like worth, like, I think, like thousands of dollars. And then a bar I like to hang out at that I shoot some of my videos at, actually. In the bar owner, his collection is all over the bar. And in there, he's got like a boxed N64 DD. He's got a Sega Katana sitting there in the bar, the Dreamcast dev kit. Stuff like that. And what is it, the laser active with the the PC Engine attachment and all that
Oh,
kind
for
of
real?
stuff. Like he
Nice.
has all kinds of just like rare stuff just chilling out in his bar. So yeah,
That's
if you ever go there, the A button in Akihabara, plug for him. If you ever go in there, you're gonna see some cool gaming stuff in there. Yeah,
that's dope. You see, it's cool stuff like that, especially like, you know, really interesting, like stuff that you would never like see anywhere else, that I think is the most fascinating. And especially I figure like with you being out there, you'll see things like that obviously like a lot of people will be like, yo, like this is insane. Like some of the stuff like, you know, you would think about it, be like, yo, like this is nuts.
Yeah. Actually, now that you mention it, some stuff that's not even that uncommon here. I had a friend of mine, Rich, goes by OK Chief on YouTube. I had sent him a package of Famicom games, and I was just kind of haphazardly, you know, picking up stuff like, oh, he might like this, he might like that, like Bomberman 2 and stuff that's like cheap here but expensive there.
Yeah.
And I knew he was a Transformers fan, and so I grabbed him that card of the Transformers, the Mystery of Optimus Prime.
Oh,
and
yeah,
it was like
the Famicom game or whatnot?
It was like it was like $3. You know, it's a terrible game, but I know he likes Transformers. So for like 300 yen, I was like, oh yeah, cool, whatever. And then when he got it, he was like, you know, having a conniption fit. He was like, oh my god, I've always wanted to play this. I never thought I'd get the chance. I was like, it was like $3, dude. You know, chill out.
That's
but
nice.
I was happy. He was happy. But you know, it's like stuff like that like, yeah, like is unusual to come across, I guess, in the U.S. or other places, but in Japan you can find for a couple of bucks, and it's no. I've seen a friend of mine, he loves Chrono Trigger, and Chrono Trigger is an expensive game on the SNES, but I went in a heart off. I found him like a really minty boxed copy. This was like 8 years ago or something, but it was 200 yen, so it was less than $2 with exchange rate for like a mint condition complete Chrono Trigger. So I just sent that to him because it was like $2. I was like, here you go, bud. If you know. And over
here you pay like an arm and a leg.
Yeah, again, he was another person that he was like, oh my god, he was like, this is going on in my mantle or something like that. I was like, that's cool, you know.
That's interesting. Now in the chat, we actually had a question for you. It's like, are there any retro gaming conventions in Japan? Like, I would assume there's gaming conventions or conventions in Japan, like where you're at. Like,
yeah, there are. I've been to some. Like, I've been to like an arcade gaming convention, which was. I mean, they had, you know, retro stuff there to play, but it was more about like showcasing like new up and coming stuff in arcade games and things like that. And obviously,
like
there's
machines,
other stuff.
like full machines and stuff.
Yeah. New machines, VR stuff, all that kind of cool stuff. And then obviously, you know, there's stuff like TGS and everything. But I've honestly, I don't know that there are like, I imagine there would be some kind of retro game convention in Japan. I'm not aware of any though. You know, I mean, it's a pretty, I don't want to say popular thing, but it has its following here. There's like, you know, a TV show dedicated to it that I don't think is on anymore, Game Center CX, which is like, you know, an amazing show. There's lots of Japanese retro game YouTubers and streamers and things like that. But to the best of my knowledge, there aren't any retro game conventions in Japan. I could be wrong about that, though.
You would think with the scene being that big. Like, because there's like so much stuff, because obviously, like, you know, the rest of the world looks at that place as like, yo, this is like the gaming mecca for a lot of people. You would think like there'd be some element of that, you know, in Japan, even if it's not like in Tokyo and stuff, like in other places.
Yeah, I imagine there is, but at the moment, I don't know. I've never, oddly enough, I've never looked into it. You think I would, what, you know, granted what I do and everything, and you know my interests, but I'm not aware of any retro game conventions here. I'm gonna have to look into that actually, and if there is one, I guess I gotta go.
Let me ask you an interesting question, because I think this isn't really talked about much. Because when you think about Japan, you think about the whole gaming scene and the collectible, like retro gaming collection scene. There's a lot of rose tinted glasses with it. What is, and again, as someone that's out there that has seen enough of that like whole area, right? What is some of the things that you think are the less like desirable stuff, or the stuff that's like maybe not as great? Because everybody says like the most amazing things about stuff like that, but like, what's the stuff that you feel like, you know, is not that great?
Like in terms of when you're actually like game hunting?
Yeah, it could be anything. Game hunting, like looking for cool stuff, or just it's things that are maybe like, again, that aren't really as positive though, as like what a lot of people would say.
I don't know. I think I feel like it's pretty fair what people say. Like Japan, a pretty small geographic region where video games are a big part of the pop culture. So there's lots and lots of video games all condensed into a small geographic area. So there's like an abundance of games, and you know, and in most cases, not so bad price wise, especially if you don't mind going to maybe a more rural area. But some people will comment that like an area like Akihabara, for example, they'll say it's a tourist trap, and everything is like radically overpriced and everything like that. And
is it really like that? Honestly,
I would say that when you go to Akihabara, most of the shops there, you're going to find prices that are like comparable to stuff like eBay, things like that. I think the contrast is people see like Akiba, where games, those shops are targeted really towards like collectors. And so the prices are like, they reflect that. That's kind of the going price of those games. Whereas if you go to like a hard off or a book off somewhere, they just have some stuff they're trying to sell. They might know the price range for some of it, but most of it, they slap a $5 price tag and throw that on a shelf. So if you're comparing,
you can get like good deals and stuff eventually.
Yeah. So if you're comparing like the dirt cheap prices of a good recycle shop like that versus the sometimes high but actually accurate prices of a shop like, you know, Super Potato, Mandarake, stuff like that. Yeah, you can look at that and be like, oh man, that's way overpriced. But really, that's kind of the going price. That's the going rate, and it's just compared to the much cheaper recycle shops. It's pretty outrageous, and I think that's just a reflection of collecting as a whole, like how expensive it's gotten. It's not really a specific thing to like Akihabara, you know. That's kind of like a general thing about collecting games. It becomes more popular, things become hard to get, and then prices go up. What can you do?
Nice. That's interesting, because I mean, in your experience, have you ever really like seen like have you ever visited like a place where you felt like the prices were like way too ridiculous, like way too much, like almost to the point like borderline unfair?
I don't want to like trash this store.
No, like don't put them on blast, like.
But I mean, I've said it before in videos. There's a chain of shops called Retro Game Camp here, and they have a couple of different spots in Akiba. And I've always felt that their prices were too much. Like if you go to like something like Super Potato Mandarake, you can look at it and be like, this is expensive, but then you can go check like, I don't know, like eBay or Yahoo Auctions or Amazon and be like, oh, okay, that's kind of par for the course for this game.
So they're roughly like the same, roughly.
Yeah. Plus, in those shops, they have those convenient little stickers that tell you like the condition of the game and the manual and all that. And depending on what the condition is, the price can go up or down. But Game Camp, usually their stuff is like, I want to say like 50% or more, like more expensive than you'll find in some of the other shops there, especially like Sudagaya and stuff like that. And when I go to Game Camp, I've pointed out that when you go shop there, a lot of their loose cartridges, other things like that, some of them will be marked as being 50% off. And I mean, when their games are half off, that's about right. Like, okay, I'd pay like half
that's off like correct.
yeah, that's the actual price it should have been. So they should not call it 50% off. They should call it like actual price.
Accurate price.
Yeah. So like that, you know, I mean, and they do offer some services. I mean, a lot of their games, they'll have these little stickers on them, like especially cartridge games. They replace the batteries for save stuff. So if you buy like RPGs and things there, they'll, you know, it's a service. They replace batteries and things. They have like AV modded original Famicoms and stuff, which are, you know, easier to buy and set up, because who the hell can screw in the little RF thing anymore. So they have cool stuff like that, and they have a good selection and everything. It's just their prices are like the highest in town. So that's always, I would say that's always like the last stop on your, if you're on an Akihabara retro game hunting tour, the last stop you're going to take is Retro Game Camp, and look for those 50% off stickers.
Nice.
But they do have, you know, some good stuff in there. It's just, they're the priciest in town for sure.
So I want to ask something a little bit different now, because I think that, again, as someone that's a fan of fighting games, that's a fan of like, you know, that arcade scene and stuff. Tell me a little bit about the arcade fighting scene, because I know, again, you're out there, that obviously in Japan there's a big like competitive scene for a lot of different types of fighting games and different locations stuff. Have you really kind of like dabbled in that and really like messed around with it? Like, tell me a little bit about that.
I've tried. It always turns out so embarrassing though. Just because, yeah, the players out here are phenomenal. I like to go to arcades that draw a pretty big crowd of regulars. I like to go to Taitohei in Akiba. I like to go to Mikado in Takadano Baba, and then just in other random places. If I'm bored or waiting for someone, I'll pop into. Especially if I'm in Shinjuku, they have some good arcades there for some fighting games.
Do you feel like there's like one spot that like has like a real big like convergence of players that are like really good?
Yeah. If you Mikado, which is my favorite arcade here in Tokyo, they have a ton of retro games and a ton of fighting games, and they have tournaments all the time. And in fact, Mikado has a YouTube channel where they're streaming like almost constantly. And if they're not having like a tournament for some fighting game, they're doing like 1cc runs through like shoot 'em ups and other notoriously difficult arcade games. Like they attract a really big contingent of really like high skill players. So Mikado is great for that, and again Taitohei in Akihabara is great for that too, because they have a ton of fighting games there. All the newest stuff is always going to be there. So yeah, those two places. I mean, there are plenty of other arcades as well, but those two attract a really like hardcore contingent of fighting game players. And one thing I really love about arcades here is even if if you're somewhere where there aren't any other players at the time, which is more commonplace now since less people are inclined to go to arcades and things, pretty much like if you want to sit down and play some Tekken or some Street Fighter or some Samurai Spirits, whatever it might be, all of those cabinets are online. They're connected to a network of arcades all across the country. So if there's nobody sitting there to play with you, you can just take the machine online, and then it'll find a player, and it'll tell you this player's in some other arcade in Osaka, or they're up in Hokkaido or wherever, and you can have some competitive play without somebody actually being there in the arcade with you.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's really different.
I love that aspect.
Honestly, like I've never heard of that, like because you always hear about the arcade scene, like okay, your players like maybe in the other machine, like right across from you or in a different spot like that. I've always heard about that, but that's news to me. Like that's different. I mean, is that commonplace in Japan, like in a lot of the locations you've been to?
Yeah, that's almost any like even before moving back to Tokyo, I was living in a town in Kanagawa Prefecture called Odawara. Not like a big densely populated place really. And the little local arcade there was, I think it was a Taito game station. And I rediscovered my love for Initial D. They had Initial D, I think it was like Infinite Stage or something. So like I hadn't had an Initial D like player card since like I was like 14 at like Aladdin's Castle at the mall. So I was like, I saw an Initial D cabinet. I was like, hell yeah. So I was like playing, upgrading my car and stuff. And then I saw that you could play online. You could play against other players wherever. You can race against other players in other arcades in Japan. So yeah, even in that little arcade in the little town I was living in there, it was a Taito chain arcade. So yeah, all the fighting games were online. The Initial D cabinets were online. So I would go and play maybe like a few offline rounds, build up my car a little bit, and then go play like some online, race some other people in some other arcades around the country. So yeah, that's a really fun aspect of Japanese arcades, is that if there's nobody there to play against, you can go online and play someone from anywhere else.
Are the connections stable though? That's the real question for a lot of people, because I know again that's always comes up in conversation about fighting games, especially with online play and stuff like that. Are the connections like really good?
Yes, I've never had any problems at all in all the time that I've played. So probably for like the past, I don't know, when I first started playing the arcade games online, maybe like, I don't know, 6-7 years ago. And I've never had any problem with it. I play a lot of Tekken. I love to play Tekken, and I'll play a lot of that online. And yeah, again, like I said, Initial D, stuff like that runs smoothly. I've never had any problems with it.
That's awesome. That's the type of internet stuff or internet connection we need in our lives here in the States. Like, because we got terrible online play here in the States, like for real. It's like really bad.
They're doing something right over here. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. If you come to an arcade here and you want to get competitive and there's nobody around immediately, just get online and go play someone, and wherever the hell they are, it'll tell you. I have a little thing. It'll tell you what arcade they're in and everything.
That's what I'm talking about. No, that's dope. Now I want to know though, because again, you've done a lot of videos for a long time, especially out there, exploring the different areas and stuff. What is one of your favorites that you've done? Like, as far as like, it doesn't necessarily even have to be gaming. It could be gaming culture wise and stuff. Like the one that you were like, yo, this was the video that was like the best for me to do.
I like it when I can work with other people and do collaborative things. There was one I made while I was still in school with a couple of friends of mine. And it was about, it was like a retro gaming culture of Akihabara kind of thing. So we were just shooting, and like it was different because I had to work with 3 other people, and I was like, let's do a voiceover, because that was, I always do voiceovers for all my videos, and they didn't want to. They wanted to do like all text and everything, just music and visuals and text. So we did that, and that was fun because we went, and I was kind of showing them around as I'm doing it, right? Like taking them around, because I already knew all about it and they were kind of like new to it. So I'm taking them to the arcades and the game stores, and that was all fun. I did an interview with my friend Shinichiro, the owner of the A Button, at his bar. So he told me a little bit about his history as a retro game collector. And then we did some interviews, man on the street kind of stuff. And that was fun because we were finding tourists from different countries in shopping for games and stuff, and so we interviewed a few of them. So we interviewed we were in Super Potato, and we stopped a guy from Chile. We interviewed him about his retro gaming fascination. We stopped a guy, I think, from like Denmark or something, another dude from Spain, and then we grabbed some,
a lot of different people from all over the world, like overall.
And then we interviewed a few Japanese people. And for that, we figured we waited until a little later at night after everyone had a few drinks in them, and then we went and
that's the best.
Because we were being just walking up to random strangers and stuff, and so usually Japanese people a little more with the privacy, like no, I'm good, but they got a few drinks in them. We got some people to start talking to us, and that was fun. Just asking. We found some older people that we started asking them, what do you like retro games and this and that, and they were like, oh, we like old games. New games are too easy. I need the challenge of old games and stuff like that. And we found a young dude, so they were talking to us, telling us their favorite games like Mario 64 and everything. And so we had a lot of fun like interviewing people. We had a little bit to drink, went out with a camera and started talking to strangers on the street. So that was really fun to make. And but I think anything, I like to shoot in Tokyo because, and a lot of people comment that on the videos, like, all this gaming stuff is cool, but like I really love the footage of the city.
Oh, the landscapes, dude! I saw some of your videos with the landscape stuff. That's beautiful. Like at night, I saw like your more recent video. That's awesome.
I really like to shoot B-roll of the city. I mean, I've talked with other people out here, some friends of mine. We've discussed like making short films and things like that, just because Tokyo is such a like a picturesque place, right? Like when I look at certain like side streets in Tokyo and stuff like that, like I'm a huge fan of the cyberpunk genre, and some of the areas of Tokyo look like something you could see in a movie like Blade Runner or something like that. And so that fascinates me. So I really like doing that. I like to shoot a lot of B-roll in the city. So anytime I can do that, that's why like some of the videos I put out where it was like game hunting in Shinjuku or arcades in Shinjuku or something, like half of that video has nothing to do with arcades or video games or anything. It's just
the landscapes, it's just the area.
Yeah, it's just me being like, oh, look at this. So I like to do that. I like to blend like the visuals of the city with music. I've put out some videos that's all they are, is just B-roll of the city, like really nice shots blended with some music I found online, usually like synthwave stuff, because that matches really well with like the visual aesthetic of Tokyo.
True,
so I like anytime I do something like that where it's a lot of B-roll of the city, mix in some music and things like that. I enjoy doing stuff like that. That's fun.
So let me ask you this. This actually comes from the chat from Timothy. He asked, like, have you ever thought of shooting B-roll in Japan using a drone, or is that like completely out of the question? I don't know the rules of Japan when it comes to drones. I know here in the States it's a little pain in the butt, but I don't know what it's like out there.
They're not big on drones here. Like I said, pretty. Even if you're just in some places, even if you just have a camera, walking around shooting things, some people might be, give you, look at you sideways or ask you to stop filming because, it is a society where people really take their privacy, seriously, and they don't like to have it, So, I mean, if you notice in a lot of the videos I shoot, if I'm shooting in an interior somewhere, if I'm in a game shop or something like that, I usually go out of my way to not be too like intrusive. I don't want to like be like shooting, people and stuff like that because they don't dig that. Like when I'm walking around on the street, I'm not too cautionary about it. Yeah. But if I'm inside somewhere, in my years here doing that shooting stuff, I've learned that people don't like to be filmed without permission. If you're inside a building or something. So like especially like some of the arcades I've shot at, you don't just go around filming players. You go up and you say, "Excuse me, can I shoot you like playing this game?"
Yeah, you ask for permission.
Yeah. And most of the time, people just be like, oh, "Yeah, sure, whatever." And that's the proper thing to do. I think in Taito Hey, they even started posting signs about that. They're like, "Look, if you want to shoot people shooting gameplay footage, ask them for permission first." And I've gone in there, and usually, like, if you just go in with your camera around and stuff, they'll come up and be like, "Please stop," So what I've done in the past is go to an employee there and be like, "Hey, look, I have a camera I want to shoot in here." And just explain to them that I want to shoot the machines, maybe shoot myself playing some games. And if I am going to shoot anybody, I'm going to ask them for permission first. Just like explain to them what you're doing. And then 9 times out of 10, they'll be like, "Yeah, sure, that's fine." But, if you just walk in, just like, shooting everyone and everything without any kind of concern, usually they'll be like, "Okay, hey, knock it off."
Yeah, so that makes sense. And I think that's fair. I think that's honestly fair because, again, I've seen various videos from like other creators and stuff that go to like Japan and do stuff like that. And I'm always wondering, it's like, okay, did they like ask anybody within the area or at least, get like permission to do so and things like that? Because it seems like the right thing to do, right?
Yeah, it's always a good idea to do that because honestly, if you just walk in and you're just like filming and stuff like that, like, I don't know, just they don't know what you're doing or why you're doing it. It kind of looks odd. And there's even one shop in particular in Akiba called Mac Japan. They sell arcade like PC boards and like Capcom arcade stuff in general. Yeah. And they have a strict like no pictures, no video policy because I think people were going in there and taking pictures of all their stuff, all their stock and all their prices and everything like that. And then they were doing something with it on the side, like boosting their own prices or doing something. And, they caught wind of it and they were like, "Hey, okay, no more filming in here. No one, none of that." So people can be like, yeah, they can look at you like, "Why are you doing that?" But usually if you just walk up to someone and be like, "Hey, except for this one time we were in the Pokemon Center in Shibuya. Really? Yeah. And we were shooting some video in there and like, they had like a thing going where like, "Are you shooting this for like home video or are you shooting it for some other purposes?" And they were kind of vague about it.
Got detailed.
Yeah. So we were like, "Oh, it's personal use, strictly home video purposes." And they were like, "All right, good." So they let us shoot that. I don't know what other nefarious purpose I could have for shooting in the Pokemon Center, but okay.
Gonna spy in the Pokemon Center.
Yeah. But typically if you go up to people and be like, "Hey, I'm like an enthusiast for retro games and stuff like that. I would like to take a little video as like a record of having been in your store and stuff. And I have a YouTube channel and all that." And they'll be like, "That's fine." And then even like, I think Hardoff follows me on Instagram. So nice. I think they're pretty aware of what I'm doing.
That's pretty good. That's pretty awesome. By the way, Destiny FOMO in the chat, she goes, "I will beat you in KOF next time." I don't know if you guys got a rivalry with King of Fighters.
No, we were at actually the same shop where she purchased this shirt for me. Thank you very much, Destiny. But they had
she's not squashing you in KOF.
No, not even close. They had those what are the pro sticks or whatever, the white Neo Geo thing with a bunch of games loaded into it. And I think it was KOF 2000. So I was like, all right, let's sit down and play some King of Fighters. And I mean, Destiny, you're a great gal and everything, good friend, like you a lot, but
you get stomped at KOF.
I gave her a red ass beat down on King of Fighters.
There you go.
So, and I didn't feel the least bit bad about it either.
Sometimes you got to just check people. You got to let them know, like, listen, you are not squashing me in this game. That's just not happening.
No mercy. But I will say though that Beast in the chat, another good friend, when he was out here, we sat down to play some Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, and he handed me my ass in a hhi hat.
Now, was it like a severe ass whooping, or was it like an okay ass whooping? Like, sometimes. Like,
no, it was. No, I mean, some of the matches were kind of close, but I think I probably went like 1-9 against Chris.
That's pretty bad.
Yeah, he was he was pretty hot that day. So yeah,
that's cool though. That sounds like fun. So let's shift gears a little bit. I want you to tell me a little bit about the stuff that's like, things that people should know about that area, again, in Japan or different areas that people should know, whether they're thinking about traveling out there or thinking about like maybe exploring a little bit. What are the things that you feel like would aid people a lot? Like the tips or something that you could think of that could really be an asset to someone that maybe just makes the trip out there?
Google Maps. Google Maps.
Yes.
Fuck with Google Maps, because I do that a lot too. A lot of the especially when I'll go to other prefectures like Saitama, Chiba, Kanagawa. Sometimes I'll be on like one of the last hard off videos I did. My girlfriend lives in Saitama, and she lives. It takes me from Shinjuku to get to her station where she lives takes about an hour. So like while I'm on the train, just on my way to go see her, I was like, you know what? Pull out the phone, Google Maps, just type in hard off, and then see what all pops up. And then I'm like, okay, well, there's one here, there's one here, there's one here. And so that's how, in those more remote areas, that's how I find a lot of the hard offs I go to, is I kind of just take the train out there and just start looking for hard offs and stuff. And that's how I find those. So if you're coming out here and you want to make that like a part of your trip, is to do some game hunting and not just strictly in like Akiba. Google Maps is great for that. I use that for everything. Like if I want to, pretty soon I want to start shooting, like if I can, at like certain like headquarter buildings for certain companies, like Capcom is here, Sega, NEC, stuff like that. And so, the way I know where all those are is Google Map, and just type in Capcom on Google Maps, and like Capcom arcades will pop up, like the Capcom Cafe, Capcom headquarters, all that stuff. So that's just like a super convenient way to find things that you're specifically looking for. So Google Maps is always great. And
that sounds fun. I think that sounds like a lot of fun.
Really. Like that would be my best advice for people. Other than that, have fun and be exploratory. And don't be one of my favorite things to do. Yeah, and just go. I mean, be comfortable. I mean, obviously, don't like be too like, oh my god, this is like nothing bad ever happens here. But like, you can be pretty comfortable going places, and like it's fun to just get on the train, get off somewhere, and then just sort of go exploring and stuff. Because what I discovered is that one of the things that makes Tokyo such kind of like a interesting city to live in, and people talk about all the little side streets and all the back alleys that you find all kinds of crazy stuff here and there, is the city planning style is what's called organic city planning, which basically means it's just like total splatter shot. It just from space, it just looks like a total spider web. So it's like the polar opposite of like New York, for example, which is like a grid style city planning. Tokyo is just
organized and stuff.
Tokyo is the complete opposite, which when you think about like sort of like Japanese culture and like mindset, you think of like methodical, you think very like empirical and precision, that kind of thing. The city planning though, exact opposite, just stuff everywhere. So it's fun to just kind of walk around, get lost, and then once you've had enough, I mean, usually there's not a cab too far from you. Or a station. That's another, the train station, the train system here is so intricate that pretty much no matter where you are, you're never far from a train station. So once you've had enough of wandering around, again, just Google train station, and then you're there.
There's always access to like transportation around there. That's kind of like the subway in New York a little bit, but I assume it's a little bit different in Japan.
Yeah. I mean, it's very intricate. You're pretty much never lost. And also something I'll recommend to people, because it's one thing people have trouble here with is navigating the trains sometimes.
Yeah.
So a good site that I use when I'm trying to find my way to like a new location, there's a site called Hyperdia, Hyperdia. If you go to Hyperdia, it's super detailed. You can put in your departing station and your destination, and it'll tell you specifically change at this station to this platform, and give you like very detailed instructions on how to get from A to B and how much it costs and all that kind of stuff. That's a really invaluable site if you're here as like a tourist and you don't really know the stations and all that very well. Hyperdia.com is your best friend.
That sounds super helpful. Especially, I can imagine also obviously for like important things like food, like important stuff like that. Besides transportation, because obviously you need to eat out there.
Yeah,
when you're going around.
That's another thing is I think Destiny can vouch for this too, because I think she basically lives off 7-Eleven food when she's out here. But there are so many convenience stores here are more than just convenience stores. They're kind of like the lifeblood of almost
they got
like the economy.
You need. Like you're good.
Yeah. And they're everywhere. That's and there's so many. There's so many chains here. There's 7-Eleven. There's Family Mart. There's Lawson. There's Mini Stop. There's Circle K every so often. I mean, so there's so many that again, it's almost like the train stations. Like no matter where you are, you're never far from one of them. And so
that's
like
good.
Cheap, good food, you can always find it. So yeah, that's a great way to get by cheaply here too. Like you're gonna want to maybe experiment with some foods. Maybe you want to go to like a conveyor belt sushi place, or you want to have some yakiniku, or you want to do some stuff like that. Lots and lots of, especially if you're in Tokyo, there's no end to what kind of food you can have. But if you want to budget a little bit, maybe save up for a big dinner, but and keep like breakfast and lunch real cheap. Those convenience stores are your best friend, because you can get in there and have a lunch for 500 yen. And it's good too. So yeah. Google Maps, Hyperdia.com, convenience stores. Those are all going to be your best friend. Yeah. That's all going to be your best friends when you're out here. And don't be afraid to explore. Get out there, check it out. Yeah.
Now I want to know about something different, because obviously, granted, it's Japan, and again, you as someone that has a lot more experience than most of the people that probably talk about any of the stuff out there, I want to hear about the weird spots, the weird things, because everybody talks about weird stuff every once in a while. And like, I'm pretty sure like you've come across like maybe one or two things that's like weird. That's like even just like awkward in some cases, because again, it might be a little different for you than everybody else out there. Like, tell me a little bit about some weird stuff, gaming or otherwise. It can be anything.
I guess it depends on what you consider weird, but let's see. When I first got here, the concept of a maid cafe was weird to me.
Yeah, we always hear about that stuff, like with people like wanting to go visit a maid cafe for like various different reasons. But like, I mean, what's that like?
It's fun. They're very tame. It's kind of like an ultra, cutesy, like everyone's in character all the time. It's just designed to be, there's like the kawaii culture here, right? Like that's something people dig, and they have different themes. We went to one time where it was themed as like high school, I guess. So like you sit at desks and write orders down on little chalkboards and stuff like that, and like you could request like I don't like listen to J-pop or anything, but if you like, they had a little stage in there and like a little performance area, and you could pay a little and request that one of the maids do like sing some like your favorite J-pop song or some anime intro song or something, and they'll do like a song and dance and everything. And they have one time in particular though, we went to more like a maid bar in the middle of the night. That was fun. I was way out in West Tokyo with some friends of mine. Very different, because usually you don't get wasted at a maid cafe. But this was an interesting, because it was me and my friend and his girlfriend, and we were just sort of wandering around. We had dinner and a few drinks, and we were just wandering around looking for the next place to go. And as we're walking past this place, and the door's opening, and this dude is leaving, stumbling out, and there's a maid in there, and his girlfriend is like, oh, a maid cafe. I want to go to a maid cafe. And so she's like, yeah, come in. So we go in, and it's less of a cafe and more of a bar. So we sat in there for a while. They had a bunch of stuff. So they gave us like stuffed animals to like cuddle with, and they took our orders.
Really?
Yeah.
I had stuffed animals.
Yeah. And
Oh
we
my God.
we sat there just drinking with a bunch of maids, and so we were there for a couple hours, just pounding beers with some maids and just talking shit. And
I mean, that sounds fun, but the thing that fucks me up is the stuffed animals. Like, it just sounds so random. Like,
it was
I don't know.
ultra comfortable, man. They're like, here, have a seat on this really comfy couch. Here's some stuffed animals, some cute stuff and everything. And they had, they're still, very cute, had their maid stuff on. They're, doing their best to stay in character. But, we're sitting there drinking, and it's just, it was a good time. It was a lot of fun. So stuff like that, kind of out of the ordinary for a lot of people. Some of the animal cafes here, they're pig cafes.
Wait, they got a pig cafe? Because I've heard of cat cafes. Like a pig cafe, like you could pet a pig?
Yes, pigs. Like little, like the tiny little pigs. Like if anyone's ever seen American Psycho. Yeah. Well, or it could be like if there's a scene in American Psycho where she's at a Christmas party, Reese Witherspoon with a pig, and she's like, it's a Vietnamese potbelly pig. They make darling pets. And they'll have like that, like tiny little pig. So there's pig, there's a hedgehog cafes, which is because you can't really pet a hedgehog per se, right?
Right. Like it's tiny.
There's rabbit cafes, dog cafes. There's bird cafes where you can sit there with birds and stuff, parrots and all kinds of stuff.
I can imagine those make sense.
There was one for dead pets as well. That was.
Oh my God! Are you serious? Whoa! That's like wow. Dead pets.
Yes, dead pet cafe. You go there and get your pet, like get them cremated or whatever, and so like it's the weird like pet funeral cremation thing / cafe. That's
weird as hell. Like I'm not gonna lie, like, that's really out there.
That was something that was shot for when I was interning at a production company in Roppongi, working on a series they had called Japan Headlines. That was one of the things that was shot at the time, was the dead pet cafe. VTubers are a big thing here, and the virtual YouTubers, what have you. And one of the more interesting things I did while I was at that company was we went and shot a video on a VTuber concert. So it's like a J-pop concert, but instead of having the performers there, it was just like the avatars of those mocap performers singing their original songs and doing their dances. So it was, and I'd never been to an idol concert either, so it was all
I was
new.
just gonna ask about that.
So they were like the glow stick, doing the dances and everything and singing along, and it was like a totally new experience for me. But instead of like actual people there, it was mocap performers. So that was a pretty interesting thing too. And just some of the themed bars out here. There's one, I don't think it's open anymore, but it was called the Asylum, and you could go in there, and it was the Asylum. It was like an insane asylum, and you sit in like a little prison area, and some of it was kind of gross. They would like serve you food out of like bedpans and syringes and stuff like that, and all of the waitresses were dressed as like these weird nurse uniforms and everything. It was kind of like a horror bar. And there are more of those, actually. There are a lot of
something like Silent Hill almost.
Yeah.
Like a little bit.
Actually, I'll plug my favorite bar in Golden Guy. There's a bar there called Deathmatch in Hell. And that's my favorite bar because it is a heavy metal / B-movie horror movie bar. So it's heavy metal all the time by request. And there are multiple TVs in there at any one given time playing like horror movies and B-movies. So you can be in there like listening, and there's all kinds of horror movie memorabilia and everything everywhere too. And so you can be in there watching Return of the Living Dead over here, and like I don't know something else, probably like Brain Dead or something over here, and just like talking with the bartender and stuff. And I was actually on TV in that bar once. I was nice. A news crew for NHK came in there, and they were doing a piece about bars and stuff in the area. And they came in there, and so I was on TV, kind of drunk, and they asked me to pretend to be a zombie. And me and the host of the show started. Yeah. You can actually find it on my channel right now. I took that little clip from NHK and put it there, and they didn't care, so that was nice. But so
everybody gotta look that up now.
We tussle a little bit as I pretend to be a zombie, So yeah,
that's funny. That's crazy. Like that sounds wild. It's like a lot of the different themes, like type of bars and like cafes and stuff like that. And again, you hear about this stuff from like other people that talk about that stuff, but actually having to go there and actually being able to see that stuff, that's got to be really, really different.
Yeah,
for like a better word.
It's incredibly fun to just walk around and explore stuff. We came across a place called Sirius, and it was like a Joker themed bar where like Heath Ledger's Joker.
Why so serious?
Yeah.
Oh man.
So I mean that was pretty cool. Other various like heavy metal places, gore bars. There are bars that are like all about like horror and gore, and there's like fake body parts and like guts and stuff hanging from the ceiling and everything. Weird stuff, but fun. And that's what's crazy about it, is that no matter what type of establishment you walk into, there could literally be like guts hanging from the ceiling. Everybody's going to be like really cordial and nice. It's like
that's cool. You see, that's cool.
Yeah, the personality of like the staff and everything never changes. Like they're always going to be like super welcoming and cool. Like it could be like anything. Like you could walk into like a maid cafe or something, like the most like cute, inoffensive place you've ever been to in your life, or you could walk into a bar where there are literally guts on the ceiling, and you're not gonna. There's almost be like no difference between how you're treated. So that's pretty interesting, I think.
That's good. That's very good overall in general. Is there any places like that you've seen that maybe might have been like a little bit like repelling to you, or like stuff that was like, okay, like maybe this isn't a good idea to go check out? Like if you could think of anything.
I mean, not really. I don't know. I'm a pretty hard person to offend. So there hasn't been a place I think yet that I've refused to go into. Except I don't like to dance. I don't like clubs. So maybe if you want me to go to like just a regular club, I'll be like, nah, that sucks. Let's go to the
I'm good.
the body parts place or something. Yeah, so yeah, I don't like normal like clubs and stuff like that. So like I'll be like, no, that's I don't want to go there. But no, so far I have not been offended enough to be repelled from going anywhere. Not as of yet. No.
So let me ask you this also, because I think this is also a good question. Is there anything that you could think of off the top of your head when it comes to any of like the arcade spots, the different cafes, or anything that you've gone to that you would actually like to see more of or want to be improved in some way? Because having seen so much, I feel like you would have a good range or at least insight into something like that you think like, okay, this could probably be a little bit better.
Yeah, a lot of the arcades could be a lot better. Most of them recently it came up that one of the Sega arcades in Akihabara is closing, and I got comments and messages and people tweeting at me being like, oh man, they were referring to it as like the Sega arcade is closing, and I had to be like, well, actually there are 5 Sega arcades just in Akihabara. They're like 30 or 40 in Tokyo
like the
alone,
big
right?
Ones, like, right?
Yeah. So I was like, that arcade. So like, I don't really feel that bad about that arcade closing, because aside from the Sega logos on it, I mean, it kind of sucks. There are a lot of arcades out here that are very generic. They don't really have like fun games. Like recently, we went to a Plaza Capcom in Ikebukuro to go shoot because they're doing VR things and stuff in there.
Yeah.
And they have an arcade section in there, and it's terrible. Like it's no good. Like it's just crane games.
Like garbage, like complete trash, or
yeah, it's just crane games, a few rhythm games. But you think you're in like a Plaza Capcom, maybe there's going to be, I don't know, like Street Fighter or any of the like hundreds of arcade games Capcom has released, and there weren't any. It sucked.
Oh wow.
The only reason to be there was for the Capcom Cafe and for the VR, and that Sega arcade in Akiba, again, like almost nothing but like crane games and purikura, like photo booths and some rhythm games and stuff. And like for me, like the reason I don't go there, the reason I go to Taito Hei is because they have fighting games. They have driving games. They have shoot 'em ups, and they still have a floor that's and they still have a floor they still have lots of rhythm games and things like that too. And that Sega arcade, it's like 7 floors, so it's not like there's no room to like you could just set a floor aside to put in like actually like games that like an arcade gamer might want to play. So, but they don't. Like, it's a super generic, and there are a lot of arcades that are like that. There are a lot of arcades that are they'll be Namco, or it'll be a Taito arcade or some other chain, and they suck. The selection of actual arcade games that you might want to play is quite limited. That's why you have to be selective when you go to Hey or when you go to Mikado, or if you find like a certain like Club Sega that on one specific floor they're going to actually have some fighting games or something like that, or some, you know, some racers and things like that. So I think a lot of the arcades could be improved here by including actual like fun, good arcade games, and not just like crane games and you know, the rhythm games. I understand they're very popular, but if you're going to have an arcade that's that big, do you really need to dedicate 3 whole floors?
You need more variety overall.
Yeah. Have some variety. You know, there'll be like 3 floors of nothing but crane games. Like, did you really need 3 floors? Like, couldn't it have been 2? And maybe that 3rd floor you could have put like some, you know, enjoyable games. So I would like to see a lot of the arcades in Japan, pick up the variety a little bit. Don't have the entire place just be crane games and photo booths, because maybe that's like, you know, nice for you know, somebody getting off of school or something and they just want to like just sit around and hang out and like sip coffee and take their pretty photos. But for like, you know, someone that wants to play some games, I'm not going to go to that arcade. I'm going to go to an arcade that has games. So hopefully like something, places like Mikado and Hey, they stay open, because they're places that actually have decent games. I was way more bummed out when the warehouse in Kawasaki shut down, the arcade that was modeled after Kowloon City, and it was like cool in there. Like the aesthetic was awesome, and they had like a ton of great games in there. And the reason they had to shut down, I was told, was just because like the landlord, it was like a tax thing, and the landlord's raising the prices because they wanted to get the arcade out, and they wanted to convert that building into like a bunch of different shops and stuff. So that's why that place had to go. Yeah. So I think the arcades here, as awesome as it is to have arcades everywhere, a lot of them could be doing better in terms of like the variety of games they have. I think so. That would be something I would improve.
That's interesting. Now, I think I should ask you this too. But by the way, you know, hopefully, guys, ask us questions, you know, so that way we could wrap up the panel really nicely with any questions or comments that you guys got. But I also want to ask too: are there a lot of events, like from a lot of the big Japanese companies, like the Capcoms, and the Nintendos, or any of the other big Japanese companies that people would think of out there, you know, in some way?
Well, Sega, they have every year they were doing a Sega Fest in Akihabara, and that's always fun because you can go there, and usually like there's games to play and like food stalls set up. And I think the last one we went to, the Mega Drive Mini hadn't been released yet. So you could go and play, you know, check out the Mega Drive Mini early, or there was like a giant Sega Saturn controller, I think.
Oh,
so you
really?
Could, like, play Sega Saturn games with a giant
like, dude, that's Sanshiro type of thing that from the commercial.
Yes, it was like a Sagata Sanshiro size Saturn controller, and you could play. That's amazing. I think, they might have had like Puyo Puyo or something set up, or so that was fun. So like Sega, they'll do stuff like that. They like I said, Capcom, they have their Plaza Capcom thing in Ikebukuro. We were just there. Right now they're doing VR Rockman. So my friend Dennis, he had a reservation, so he got to play some VR Rockman. They've been doing VR Biohazard stuff there. So that's a good reason to go there, because they're always doing something different. And then there's the Capcom Cafe, and they change themes a lot. So when we went, it was a Devil May Cry. So they had lots of Devil May Cry stuff all around, and then the music they play in the cafe is just like stuff off the Devil May Cry soundtrack.
You see, that's cool. So, I love that because I'm a big DMC fan.
So that's awesome. That was cool. We went there and ordered some drinks. I think the Dennis got a drink called the Dante, and it's got like a little hat on it or something. I don't know why. And I got the Jill Valentine, which is like a blue drink with like, it's like almost like an ice cream float or something like that. So that was pretty cool. Cool. So that's cool. So they're like specific like Capcom branded things, or like if you go like to Shibuya, in a building there's like the Nintendo store there, and the Capcom store, and Pokemon Center, all that kind of stuff. So there's things like that. But aside from Sega Fest, I can't think of like big events that go on other than like maybe like that VR thing or whatever. Usually that kind of stuff is held for like Tokyo Game Show, because that's always fun to go to. Capcom will have
like the only ones I could think of would be Tokyo Game Show, would be like Super Battle Opera and things of that nature that I've heard about from like other people that have gone down. Because again, I don't know much about that scene like that.
They always have fun stuff at TGS. Capcom, they have their Biohazard Airsoft gun range. which is always fun. They have these replica biohazard guns that if you want to, you can wait in line, and if you want to use like Jill's Beretta or something like that, and
that's
go
cool.
shoot some.
That's really cool.
Go shoot some airsoft at some zombie targets and stuff. So stuff like that is always fun. That's always a great thing. But yeah, I guess I wish there would be more stuff like that, more events put on by individual game developers and things. That would be nice.
That's interesting, because you would think, like, again, with some of the big Japanese companies being out there in Japan, you would think like they would probably do a little bit more. Because again, I've heard of stuff like from Monster Hunter, like having stuff in like Universal or things like that, but I've never really heard of like other events that are like small like that. Because again, we have a lot of events here in the US that are done by different companies for various different reasons. But again, that's interesting to hear that it's not really like that in Japan.
Yeah, they'll do stuff like that. I think also it might have been at Universal or some theme park. They did a biohazard thing, but it was like you could put on the gear like the biohazard, like you could be like a stars, person, or a special forces thing, and you would have like some little guns and stuff, and go through like a little maze type thing, and there would be I think there were just people like cosplaying as zombies, and you could shoot them and stuff. So stuff like that sounds cool. But as far as just like this, big event like that, the only one I can really think of right now is Sega Fest, but that's always fun.
Cool. That's very cool. Now, we got some questions in the chat that I think we should touch on before we end the panel. We got one from Matthew that goes, are there 90s themes arcades that are similar to the arcades in High Score Girl? Like, at least, because I'm pretty sure you've probably seen High Score Girl on Netflix. Yeah. They have like a lot of the fighting game type of like, cabinets and stuff like that in arcades and stuff. Is it like that out there?
Yeah, go to Mikado in an area called Takadano Baba, which is close to Shinjuku, and they have... I mean, the first floor is nothing but, like retro games. I had not seen an actual like Outrun cabinet or Space Harrier or like Addams Family pinball. I hadn't seen stuff like that in forever. So when we went to Mikado, and they had pinball and they had Outrun on the first floor and tons of shoot 'em ups and retro arcade games on the first floor. And then when you went to the second floor, just all these fighting games. And we were up there all day playing, Street Fighter and Fist of the North Star, and Darkstalkers, and they had these SNK, like a multicab, like MVS.
Things. Oh, the MCV or MVC cabinets, like with the multiple games in it.
Yeah. We were just up there playing fighting games, like all day. So yeah, Mikado is the best arcade in Tokyo for that kind of thing, for sure. It's retro, you could call it a retro '90s theme, kind of. And Mikado,
that's
Matthew, go there.
Let me ask you this also, because this comes from Eric in the chat. Would you recommend a hotel over an Airbnb to stay over, or vice versa when you're out there?
I think that depends. Some of it depends on your budget. If you're really on a strict budget, there are hostels here, and those are like super cheap. You pay like, $10-20 a night or something like that and stay in one of those. Some of the more like economy hotels here, there's one, it's called Toyoko Inn, or Appa Hotel. You can get like those small rooms, like just a twin bed and barely enough room to move around. But if you don't plan on being there that much, who cares? And you can get those, they're like $40 a night or so. But if you got a little more money and you want to be a little more comfortable, Airbnb is always fun. I think it depends on your budget, but if you want like a budget hotel to stay at, either Toyoko Inn or Appa, and those are everywhere. There's an Appa in Akihabara. So if you want to stay there, you can. So those are all over the place. Cool. And usually rooms are readily available and pretty cheap. And then there's also lots and lots of hostels in Tokyo as well, if you're a youngster.
Now Gabriel asked one of the last questions. She goes, hearing stories like this and how people love your vids, how does that make you think about the vids that you make? Like does like a lot of the reactions and stuff that you get from people like on social media or in the comments, like really kind of influence or dictate kind of like where you want to go with the next or subsequent videos?
Not really. Just because I like the kinds of videos I'm making. So that's, why I continue to make them. I think everybody should approach YouTube that way. You should do whatever is if it's fun for you to make a video that way, and if that's the kind of creative thing you want to do, then you should do it. And if other people enjoy it, you'll find your audience. But it motivates me to continue to make videos when people say how much they enjoy them, or they use them, like they come to Tokyo and they use my videos as sort of like a guide to go here or there, or my videos inspired them to want to go to it inspired them to want to go to a certain place. When I meet viewers in person, I've met a ton of people. They message me when they're coming for a trip, and I'll meet up with them, to maybe take them game hunting, maybe go to dinner with them, hit a bar or something, and they tell me about, like, hearing that kind of stuff is motivation to continue to do it. But I think I take feedback from people and listen to what they like, but at the end of the day, like, I have to enjoy what I'm doing in order to keep doing it. So if they like watching it, I like doing it, then everybody's happy. But yeah, it's motivation to continue to make videos when people say they enjoy them so much. I appreciate it very much.
That's a good thing, because again, it obviously keeps you in the game, wanting to do more and doing a lot of bigger things. Destiny FOMO has got the last question of the panel. She goes, "What will it take to get Jim to live stream playing DDR? Like, what's going to get you to play some DDR out here? Because they want some DDR."
I've never played DDR.
3-hour stream of DDR with Jim.
Yeah, sure. Why not? I've never played DDR in my entire life. You know what it's going to take? It's going to take maybe a few drinks in me, and then we'll give it a shot.
Might need a few more than a few drinks.
Yeah. You know what, Destiny? If you wanna buy me some drinks and then pay for however much it's going to cost to play DDR for 3 hours, yeah, sure. Oh my God. Why not?
That would make a hilarious YouTube video. I'm just saying, like, I would watch. I'd be like, wow, this is hilarious. That would be amazing. That would be dope. But I think this is the end of the panel. We come to the end. It's like, any final thoughts you want to tell everybody out there, about, you being out there in Japan, or anything else that might be maybe helpful or something insightful for everybody out there?
Just if you're going to come here, have fun, keep an open mind. I mean, it's the video games and everything. That's great. But Japan it's a beautiful country. There's a wonderful culture, great people. So if you come here, enjoy the games, all that kind of stuff, enjoy the pop culture things, but make sure you take a little time to get to know the country a little bit, to get to know the city of Tokyo a little bit, the people, things like that. Japan is a total package for that kind of thing. So when you come, approach it from the view of you're gonna enjoy what this country has to offer as a whole. It's more than just video games and anime. So enjoy those things, but get that little bit into your head that it's a beautiful country with awesome people, and it's more than just what you've seen on TV. So keep an open mind when you come here. Have fun.
Facts. And again, you would know because you're out there literally like right now. So you would know more, or pretty much best, than most people out there or out here, that might have visited and stuff. So, which is good. So. But, my man, thank you so much for chatting with me on this panel. This was awesome. It was a privilege to chat with you about all this stuff. It was fun. Hopefully everybody in the chat, everybody else watching this in the archives and stuff, enjoyed this panel, obviously, as well. Thank you to UpLink for having us, for allowing us to talk about this stuff and whatnot. And we will talk to you guys again, hopefully very soon. Make sure you guys check out KidShoryuken on YouTube. You got a lot of videos you uploaded recently, which is cool, which is dope. Definitely check out his stuff. Check out my stuff, youtube.com/gamerswithgains channel. We talk about a whole bunch of stuff related to gaming. And again, hopefully you guys enjoyed this stuff. We will see you guys again real soon. Thank you.